brain plasticity influenced by new inputs. This rigidity, however, is proving to be more about our tendency to habituate behaviors, thoughts, and routines than it is about the brain's actual physiology. In other words, there is indeed a lot of wiring that seems to be hard, but the wiring is a function, not a fixture. The wiring can actually change according to the inputs. Change the inputs, change the wiring. This is the plasticity of the brain. The power in this idea is not just that our brains are not as hardwired as we once thought, but that we can actually control how our brains work. By controlling the inputs, we can rewire our brains accordingly and to our advantage. Selecting healthy inputs. This is where the efficiency of our brains comes back in to haunt us. Neuroplasticity is about function creating form. The brain's resiliency is based on its ability to adapt its physical structure according to the stimuli it receives. As a result, it becomes more efficient in responding to the stimuli that are repeated. Neuroplasticity is how we can drive a car without really thinking much about what our hands and feet and eyes and ears are doing. But what happens if we don't manage the inputs? What will our brains do when this powerful attribute is left to respond to habits that are not to our advantage, even unhealthy or outright dangerous? While neuroplasticity responds to our inputs, it does not differentiate between what is accretive to a healthy bottom line and what might drive us ill health. While neuroplasticity responds to our inputs, it does not differentiate between what is accretive to a healthy bottom line and what might drive us into ill health. In his 2007 book, The Brain That Changes Itself, Norman Doidge, MD, calls this the plastic paradox. He describes this power of the brain as a means toward more flexibility, but paradoxically, also a means towards more rigid behaviors. Ironically, some of our most stubborn habits and disorders are products of our plasticity. It is by understanding both the positive and negative effects of plasticity that we can truly understand the extent of human possibility. Dr. Norman Doidge. What Dr. Doidge is addressing is the challenge of managing our inputs. The structural changes that happen in our brains can be consciously induced based on our choices and subsequent behaviors, but can also be unconsciously induced through habitual or passive participation in routines based on what our environment presents. In a modern environment full of stimuli, much of which is specifically designed to capture our unconscious attention, presents many challenges in this regard. It could also explain, at least in part, why so many people suffer from anxiety, depression, and other physical illnesses in a time when life is arguably the easiest and safest it has ever been. The signs of Kundalini awakening are many and varied, all representing growth and expansion. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, it's a sign that your Kundalini may be on the rise. The good news is that yoga and meditation can help you integrate the energy of Kundalini awakening more smoothly into your life and, most importantly, into your nervous system. You will need to find a good guide or mentor through books, audio, or person to assist you in accompanying the awakening. Bodywork, yoga, meditation, practice with a respected healer and practitioner will also help immensely. In fact, Just being in the presence of someone who sits in the seat of the self or deep presence alone may be enough. As I've previously stated, I've struggled with my weight for the majority of my life. Before all this started, I once weighed in just under 300 pounds. I failed to realize I struggled because of how I treated myself. I created this assumption in my mind that since I've gained this weight and held it for such a long time, it must now be part of me. Something I'm destined to carry with myself for the rest of my existence. With this thought process, I assumed there was no point in even trying. I failed to realize I was brought up to eat the absolute worst things. Processed foods, breads, meats, soda, sugar, all used to be major parts of my diet, but since my awakening, my dietary wants have changed drastically. What was once desirable has now become repulsive, and even cruel to now consider eating. I now see this misunderstanding, for it was my mindset, obvious lack of effort, self-respect, and willpower necessary to change that prevented me from doing so sooner. Jeremiah 30:17 says, "For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord." Although I cannot bring myself to believe that humans are evolutionary descendants of lesser primates, especially provided that primates have been evolving side by side with humans, yet have not shown signs of becoming any more human-like, I do, however, believe there is a deep connection between all life forms. As another form of life, much like myself, an animal deserves an opportunity to experience the time it has been given. I soon realized that if I can live a healthy life on a plant-based diet, yet still get to benefit from many animal byproducts, without the need of taking or shortening a life simply for carnal pleasures, found myself quickly removing all forms of meat from my diet. Not only has this dietary change benefited me tremendously by allowing me to not only feel better emotionally about what I ate, but also better physically. However, according to the Smithsonian's Natural History Museum, every living human shares a common ancestry that extends deep back in time. The traits that make us human evolved over more than 6 million years ago. During one of the most dramatic periods of climate change in Earth's history, earliest modern human migrations from Africa. 180,000 years for a modern human fossil from Mislia and Israel, suggesting that modern humans left Africa much earlier than previously thought. Of the many early humanoid groups, there is only one species that still survives. That is our own, Homo sapiens. And for this reason, all modern humans are 99.9% genetically similar. One may be surprised to find that we're 98.8% genetically similar to chimpanzees, 98.4% genetically similar to gorillas, 96.9% genetically similar to orangutans, 93% genetically similar to monkeys, and 60% genetically similar to bananas. Due to billions of years of evolution, humans share genes with all living organisms, including banana trees. The percentage of genes, or DNA, that organisms share records their similarities. We share more genes with organisms that are more closely related to us. How genetically similar are you to some of your close and distant cousins? Besides similar anatomy and behavior, there is DNA evidence. It confirms that humans are primates and that modern humans and chimpanzees diverged from a common ancestor between 8 and 6 million years ago. There's only about 1.2% genetic difference between modern humans and chimpanzees.